It was a quiet evening. The sky outside was painted in shades of purple and orange as the human sat on his balcony, sipping his drink. He had just finished a long day and was looking forward to some peace. Little did he know, his life was about to change forever. As he stared at the stars, a strange feeling filled the air. A sudden chill ran down his spine. He stood up, confused, sensing that something wasn't right. Then, before he could even think about what was happening, a brilliant light appeared out of nowhere. It was blinding at first, but as the light dimmed, he saw her. A figure, glowing with an otherworldly aura, stood in front of him. She was tall, elegant, and unmistakably alien. Her features were delicate, her eyes a deep shade of purple, glowing softly in the fading light. The human's heart raced. He couldn't believe his eyes. She wasn't from his world. There was no doubt about it. The air around them felt charged, as though the universe itself had paused to witness this moment. The alien princess, standing before him, didn't seem frightened or confused. She was confident, regal, and calm. "Do you desire me as your wife?" she asked, her voice soft yet commanding. The question hung in the air like a heavy cloud, too surreal to comprehend. The human blinked, trying to make sense of what he had just heard. Was he dreaming, or was this some sort of trick? His mind was racing, trying to piece together any logical explanation. But none came. She was real. She was right there, in front of him, asking him the most unusual question. He stood frozen for a moment, not knowing how to respond. The situation was beyond anything he had ever imagined. He wasn't sure if he should be terrified or excited. What kind of a question was this? A part of him wanted to run, but another part felt drawn to her, compelled by the unknown. He couldn't deny the magnetic pull she had on him. There was something captivating about her presence, something that made him feel as though he was standing at the edge of a great adventure. The princess's eyes locked onto his, waiting for his answer. She didn't look impatient, but there was a silent expectation in the air. Her question wasn't just an inquiry. It felt like a challenge, an invitation to something bigger than anything he had ever known. For a moment, the human thought of every reason why he should say no. The dangers, the unknowns, the risks of saying yes to a proposal from someone so alien, so far beyond his world. But something inside him stirred, something that had been dormant for years. The thrill of the unknown, the possibility of adventure, and the allure of the mysterious alien princess pulled him closer. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest, and finally, he spoke. "Yes," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. As soon as the word left his lips, the world seemed to shift. The princess's smile was subtle, but it held a promise that everything was about to change. Little did he know, his simple yes had just set in motion a journey beyond his wildest dreams. The moment the word yes left his lips, everything around him seemed to freeze. The night, once still and quiet, suddenly felt alive with an energy he couldn't explain. The air shimmered, and the ground beneath him seemed to hum with an unfamiliar power. The alien princess smiled, her eyes glowing brighter than before, and in that moment, the human realized he had made a decision that would change everything. Without saying a word, she reached out, her fingers brushing against his arm. A strange warmth spread through his body, not painful, but strangely comforting, like a fire that warmed you from the inside out. The human didn't know how to react. He had just agreed to marry a creature from another world. Could it really be real? Was he truly ready for what he had just committed to? But before he could even gather his thoughts, the princess spoke again, her voice soft yet powerful. "Come with me," she said. Her words were not a request, but an invitation, a command wrapped in mystery. The human felt an urge to follow her, as if something deep within him told him that this was the right path. Without hesitation, he followed her, walking beside her as they approached a sleek, shimmering vessel that had materialized out of nowhere. It was unlike any ship he had ever seen, its surface smooth and reflective, glowing faintly with hues of blue and silver. It looked as if it belonged in a dream that, at that moment, was becoming his reality. As they stepped closer, the human felt a shiver of excitement and fear run through him. What was happening? He was about to board a spaceship with an alien princess, his mind racing with 1,000 questions. Why had she chosen him? What did it mean to be her husband? Was this just a dream, or had he truly been swept into something far beyond his understanding? The princess didn't say a word as she motioned for him to enter the ship. With a mix of awe and uncertainty, he stepped inside. The interior was nothing like anything from Earth. The walls glowed with a soft, ethereal light, and the air felt different, cleaner, fresher, almost as if it didn't belong to Earth at all. As the door closed behind them, the human felt a strange sense of isolation. He was now miles away from everything he had known, stepping into a world that was as mysterious as it was alluring. The princess took her place at the controls of the ship, her movements graceful and purposeful. The human watched her, still in disbelief that he was here. His mind swirled with questions, but for the first time in his life, he didn't feel the need to ask them. It was as if the answers were just out of reach, waiting for him to discover them on his own. He had stepped into the unknown, and it felt like the beginning of an adventure he had never imagined. As the ship began to lift off, the human felt his stomach drop, but it wasn't fear that gripped him. It was excitement, the thrill of being part of something so much bigger than himself. As the earth shrank away below them, the alien princess turned to him with a smile. Her eyes filled with a promise he didn't fully understand yet. He had made his choice, and now there was no turning back. Whatever was ahead, he was ready to face it, side by side with the mysterious princess who had changed his world forever. As the ship soared through the stars, the human's mind raced, trying to grasp the enormity of what was happening. He had agreed to marry an alien princess, and now he was heading toward a distant world, leaving everything he knew behind. The silence between them was heavy, but there was an unspoken understanding that they were both contemplating the journey ahead. He watched the stars blur by the windows, the galaxies stretching out in every direction, and realized just how small Earth really was. The princess sat in the pilot's seat, her hands effortlessly navigating the ship. There was a quiet confidence in her movements, a grace that seemed otherworldly. The human couldn't help but wonder what she was really thinking. Was she as nervous as he was? Or was she simply accustomed to the strange, the extraordinary, and the unknown? After what felt like hours, the silence was finally broken. The princess spoke, her voice soft yet filled with a power that seemed to resonate deep within him. "You may be wondering why I chose you," she said, her eyes glancing briefly at him before returning to the controls. Why a human, and why now? The human's heart skipped a beat. The question had been lingering in the back of his mind since she first appeared before him, and now she was giving him the chance to ask it. He nodded, eager to hear her answer, but unsure if he was truly ready for it. "I come from a world where our ways are ancient and our traditions are sacred, but my people are dying. My world is dying," she continued, her voice carrying a sadness that tugged at his heart. "We have no future unless we can unite with another race, someone strong, someone with the will to lead us. That's where you come in." The human was stunned. He hadn't expected this. It wasn't just a marriage. It was a union between two worlds, a fusion of cultures, of hopes and dreams for the survival of an entire civilization. He had thought her question was merely a test, but now he realized it was much more. The weight of the responsibility began to sink in, and he felt the full force of what he had agreed to. "But why me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why a human?" The princess turned to look at him, her eyes intense yet full of something he couldn't quite place, perhaps admiration, perhaps desperation. "Because humans are resilient. You are resourceful. You adapt to challenges that would break other races. I have watched you from afar, and I have seen how you fight to survive, how you push through even the darkest of times. My people need that strength. We need you." The human felt a strange mixture of pride and fear. He had always known that humans were capable of incredible things, but to hear it from an alien princess made it feel more real, more important. He had thought he was just an ordinary man, living an ordinary life, but now he was part of something far greater. They were approaching her homeworld now, the planet slowly coming into view as the ship made its descent. The human could feel the gravity of the moment settling in. This wasn't just an adventure, it was a chance to make a difference, to become something more than he had ever imagined. The alien princess was right. This was no ordinary marriage. It was a mission that would determine the future of an entire world. As the ship touched down on the alien planet's surface, the human felt a rush of emotions. He was scared, excited, and unsure all at once. But one thing was certain, this was just the beginning. The moment the ship touched the surface of the alien world, the human felt a sudden shift. The air felt different, charged, alive with a strange energy. As the ramp lowered, he could see the landscape stretching out before him, unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering structures of crystal and metal rose from the ground, their surfaces shimmering in the light of two suns that hung in the sky, casting strange shadows on the ground below. The world was both beautiful and alien, with vibrant colors and landscapes that seemed almost too perfect to be real. The princess led him down the ramp, her presence commanding as she moved with the grace of someone who was born to rule. He followed, his eyes wide with awe. The air smelled different, too fresh, almost like the scent of rain on a planet far from Earth. There were no words that could describe the beauty of this place, nor the sense of power that seemed to emanate from it. It felt as if the world itself was alive, watching them as they walked. As they ventured deeper into the city, the human noticed how the alien inhabitants moved around them, quick, efficient, but not in a hurried way. There was a calmness to their actions, an aura of peace and purpose. He had expected chaos, but what he saw was harmony. These people were not struggling to survive. They were thriving, in tune with their world and their technology. They stopped before an enormous structure, its crystal towers rising high into the sky. The princess turned to him, her eyes meeting his with a mixture of determination and vulnerability. "This is where we will begin," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of her words. "Here, we will join our worlds, our fates. But before we can do that, you must understand everything." The human nodded, but inside, he felt a storm of emotions. The grandeur of the city, the beauty of the planet, and the weight of the princess's words were almost too much to process. How was he supposed to understand all of this in such a short time? What could he possibly do to help save an entire civilization? The princess led him inside the structure, where the walls seemed to pulse with energy. The room they entered was massive, filled with strange devices and advanced technology that the human couldn't begin to understand. On one side of the room stood a large holographic display, showing the history of the princess's people, an ancient race with a rich culture and a deep connection to the stars. As the holograms played, the humans saw images of their ancestors, their rise to power, and the beautiful world they had once lived in. But then the holograms shifted. The images darkened, showing the fall of their civilization. The planet was dying, the once beautiful landscapes now withering and decaying. The princess's people had faced wars, diseases, and environmental disasters. The land was barren, and the oceans had begun to dry up. The human watched in shock as the planet's once thriving cities crumbled into ruins. "This is the reality we face," the princess said, her voice somber. "Without help, my people will cease to exist." The human felt the weight of her words. His heart ached as he saw the suffering of an entire species. But he also felt a growing sense of responsibility. He had agreed to this journey, but now he understood the gravity of what he had stepped into. This was not just about marrying an alien princess, it was about saving her world, her people, and perhaps even his own. He turned to her, ready to accept whatever role he had to play, knowing that nothing in his life had prepared him for what lay ahead. But deep down, he understood that this was his purpose now. He was no longer just a human from Earth. He was part of something far greater. And as the holographic images faded into darkness, he made a silent vow to do whatever it took to help the princess and her people survive. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind. The human found himself immersed in a world that was both mesmerizing and overwhelming. Every moment spent on the alien planet revealed new wonders, strange creatures, advanced technologies, and breathtaking landscapes, but also hidden dangers and challenges that he had never imagined. The princess, despite her regal demeanor, had not been forthcoming with all the details. There was more to her mission than just saving her people. She had hinted at a darker side of her world, a struggle for power that threatened to tear everything apart. It wasn't just her people who needed saving. It was the very heart of their civilization. The planet's fragile state was the result of long-standing political turmoil, and now she was forced to confront enemies who had long been in the shadows. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the princess took him aside. They stood on a balcony that overlooked the sprawling city, the lights below twinkling like stars. The air was cool, and the sounds of the city felt distant, almost peaceful. "There's something you need to know," she said softly, her voice betraying a hint of vulnerability. "The enemies I face aren't just external. They are among my own people." She paused, her gaze fixed on the distance. "There are factions who believe that humans are a threat to our survival. They think we're too weak, too fragile. They believe that merging with your race will only bring more ruin." The human was taken aback. He had known that there were dangers, but he hadn't realized the depth of the internal conflict. He had imagined that the princess's people were united in their desperation, but now he saw that even their survival was a matter of division. "But why me?" he asked, trying to understand. "Why did you choose to marry a human when it could make things worse?" The princess turned to him, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "Because I need someone who can challenge our traditions," she replied, her voice steady. "Someone who can bring fresh ideas, new strength. Your people humans have faced so much, yet you always find a way to survive. We need that. We need hope." The human felt a surge of emotion, his chest tightening with the weight of her words. He had never imagined that he would be thrust into such a pivotal role, but the princess's words resonated deeply with him. This wasn't just about a marriage. It was about change, about breaking the cycles of destruction and division that had plagued her world for so long. As the days turned into weeks, the human was introduced to more of the princess's world, her people, their customs, their hopes, and their fears. He spent time with the leaders of the various factions, trying to understand their viewpoints. Some were open to the idea of alliance with Earth, while others were vehemently opposed. The princess had always been seen as a symbol of hope, but even she couldn't erase the centuries of mistrust and fear that ran deep within her people. Yet, despite the tension, there were moments of connection. The human spent hours with the princess, learning about her past, her dreams, and the weight of her responsibilities. In those moments, their bond grew stronger. He saw beyond the crown, beyond the alien beauty, and saw a woman who was just as uncertain about her future as he was about his own. But there was no time for hesitation. As the political unrest began to escalate, so did the dangers. Rumors of an assassination plot against the princess began to circulate, and tensions reached a boiling point. The human could no longer remain an outsider to the princess's fight. He had already chosen to be part of this world, and now he had to be ready to protect it no matter the cost. The stakes had never been higher, and the human realized that he was no longer just playing a role. He was part of something bigger than himself, something that could either save or destroy an entire civilization. The air was thick with tension. Every day, it felt as though the walls around them were closing in. The human and the princess found themselves in the heart of a storm that neither of them had expected. The factions that opposed their union were growing more vocal, their resistance more dangerous. It wasn't just political anymore. It had become a matter of survival. The princess's enemies had made their move. One evening, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, the princess summoned the human to a secret meeting. He had grown accustomed to the secrecy, to the whispers that seemed to follow them wherever they went. But tonight, the weight of the situation was undeniable. They were no longer just hiding from politics, they were hiding from an imminent threat. They met in a hidden chamber beneath the palace, where the princess's closest advisors had gathered. The room was dimly lit, and the tension was palpable. The princess stood in the center, her posture straight, yet her eyes betrayed the fear she had worked so hard to suppress. The human noticed the way she clenched her fists, the way her jaw tightened. It was a side of her he had never seen before, vulnerable, uncertain. "The assassins are already among us," she said, her voice calm but filled with an urgency that chilled him to the bone. "We can't wait any longer. If we don't act now, everything we've worked for will crumble." The human felt a cold rush of fear, but he didn't show it. He had come this far, and there was no turning back. He had already pledged his loyalty to her and to the people of this world. But the weight of the princess's words hit him harder than anything else. They weren't just fighting for political power now. They were fighting for their lives. One of the advisors spoke, his voice low and serious. "The princess is right. There are spies everywhere. They've infiltrated our ranks, and they're watching our every move." The human looked at the princess, his eyes filled with resolve. "What do we need to do?" She turned to him, her gaze steady. "We need to strike first. We cannot afford to wait for them to make their move. We need to rally our allies and take control of the situation. I will not let my people fall." The human nodded. He had no experience in intergalactic warfare, no training for what lay ahead. But he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to stand by and watch her fight alone. As the princess laid out her plan, the human felt a sense of determination rise within him. They were in this together. No matter the cost, they would face the storm as one. The princess had chosen him not just as a husband, but as a partner in every sense of the word. And now, more than ever, he knew that their fates were entwined. Whatever happened next, they would fight side by side. Their love and their strength the only weapons they had left. The night before the final battle, the human stood alone on the palace's highest balcony, staring out into the vastness of the alien world. Below, the city was eerily quiet, the soft glow of distant lights casting long shadows. The stars above seemed closer than ever, a constant reminder of the scale of what they were about to face. Tomorrow would be a day of reckoning one way or another. Everything would change. The princess had told him that she was ready, that they had prepared as much as they could, but the human could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She had always been strong, but even she had her limits. Tonight, as they gathered their forces and made their final preparations, the weight of their mission seemed to settle on his shoulders more heavily than ever. This was no longer just about survival. It was about the future of a world, a people, and their love. As he turned away from the balcony, he found the princess standing in the doorway, watching him silently. Her face was calm, but her eyes held a depth of emotion that spoke volumes. She had been through so much, her people had been through so much, and now it was their turn to fight for a future. But there was something in the air, something that made the human realize just how uncertain everything was. The princess was not just fighting for her people. She was fighting for the very heart of who she was. "You're not alone," the human said softly, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside him. "I'm with you. Whatever happens tomorrow, we face it together." The princess's gaze softened, and for a brief moment, she looked vulnerable, no longer the powerful ruler, but a woman who had chosen to trust him with everything. "I know," she whispered, stepping closer to him. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You've already shown me what I need. You are my strength, and I am yours." Their eyes locked, and in that moment, the human understood. This wasn't just about political alliances or survival. It was about love, a love that had transcended worlds, that had defied all odds. The bond they shared was more than just physical. It was deeper than anything he had ever imagined. As dawn broke and the first light of day touched the planet's surface, the human and the princess stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. The battlefield awaited them, but they had something no enemy could take away: their connection, their shared purpose. They had chosen each other, and together they would fight for a future, for a world that still held hope. No matter the outcome, they were no longer just two individuals caught in a struggle for survival. They were a united force, bound by something greater than they could have ever imagined. And that was the greatest weapon they had: